Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As thunderclouds enshrouded the once bright summer sky, the warm ambiance of a 4th of July gathering quickly transformed into a scene of indoor chaos. The Morgan family rushed into their house, carrying burgers and potato salads, their voices echoing through the confined space. Among the bustling family, a solitary figure, Devin, quietly moved with efficient grace, arranging condiments in the kitchen. Years of practice had honed his ability to move unnoticed during these crowded family events, an expertise he valued more than ever now. "Uncle Devin, what's that on your lips?" The high-pitched inquiry rang in the air, drawing looks from the kitchen guests. Little Mia's eyes widened at the intriguing spectacle of Devin's lips, adorned in clear gloss. For Devin, this was more than just a casual styling choice. It was one deliberate step in a carefully crafted journey. The therapy sessions with Dr. Winters had encouraged these gradual shifts. A touch of mascara, clear polish on nails kept short, and today, the lip gloss that caught the light just enough for observant eyes.
"It's just some lip gloss, sweetie,"
Devin replied, voice soft but steady.
"It keeps my lips from getting dry."
"Like mommy wears?" Mia persisted, fascination evident in her wide eyes. Devin's sister Ellie appeared at Mia's side, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Honey, why don't you go help Grandma set up the indoor picnic?" "It's okay, Elle," Devin said, meeting his sister's concerned gaze. Something inside him shifted, a decision crystallizing in the moment. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to everyone about some changes in my life." The kitchen had gone completely silent now. Devin's parents exchanged glances across the room. His brother-in-law, Ryan, paused mid-beer sip. Uncle Frank, his father's older brother, frowned from his position by the refrigerator. "Maybe this isn't the time," his mother suggested gently, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Devin took a deep breath.
"I've been seeing a gender therapist for several months now,"
he said, the words emerging with surprising steadiness. "I'm transgender. I've known for a long time, but I've only recently found the courage to begin addressing it." Ellie stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Devin.
"We love you,"
she whispered. "No matter what." "Does this mean you're going to be my aunt instead of my uncle?" Mia asked, her young face showing nothing but innocent curiosity. A smile broke across Devin's face.
"Eventually, yes." "What will your name be?"
his father asked quietly from across the kitchen. Devin had thought about this extensively during late nights and therapy sessions.
"Lila,"
he answered.
"I'd like to be called Lila."
Uncle Frank pushed away from the refrigerator.
"I need some air,"
he muttered, brushing past the family toward the living room. Devin's mother shot a worried glance toward her brother-in-law's retreating form before turning back to Devin.
It's a surprise, honey, but we're here for you. Would you like to see?"
Devin hesitated, then pulled out his phone and opened a folder of images he'd been collecting.
"I've been buying some clothes. Nothing dramatic yet, but..."
He scrolled to a photo of a flowing midi skirt in soft lavender, paired with a cream-colored cashmere sweater laid out on his bed at home. His mother leaned in, studying the image. "That's a beautiful color combination," she said, her voice catching slightly.
"I have more,"
Devin said, newfound confidence building as he swiped through photos of carefully selected outfits, pastel blouses, A-line skirts, and a particularly lovely teal shirt dress he'd ordered but hadn't yet worn.
When will you start wearing these?
His brother-in-law Ryan asked, his tone neutral but not unkind. I've been wearing some pieces at home. Dr. Winters suggested taking it slowly, building comfort before making more public appearances. The conversation gradually shifted, questions emerging naturally between bites of the hastily prepared indoor barbecue. Devon answered each one candidly, feeling a weight lifting with each honest response. Even as Uncle Frank remained distant for the remainder of the gathering, most of the family rallied around with supportive questions and gestures. As the evening wound down, Devon's father approached, placing a weathered hand on his child's shoulder.
This won't be easy,
he said, his voice gruff with emotion.
There'll be people who don't understand, but you've always had courage, Dee.
He paused, correcting himself.
Lila. You've always had courage, Lila.
The name hung in the air between them, new and unfamiliar, but somehow right. The weeks following the 4th of July revelation unfolded in a whirlwind of changes. Devon, now increasingly thinking of herself as Lila, began hormone therapy under medical supervision. Each morning brought the ritual of a small pill that promised subtle but meaningful changes to her body and emotional landscape. Dr. Winters had cautioned patients. Physical changes take time, she'd explained during their weekly session. But the psychological freedom of living authentically often produces immediate benefits. True to those words, Lila found herself standing straighter, smiling more readily, even as her physical appearance remained largely unchanged in these early days. The auburn hair she'd kept neatly trimmed for years was now growing out, reaching an awkward in-between length that she managed with styling products and increasingly feminine cuts. By mid-August, Lila had begun wearing her feminine clothes around her apartment consistently. The soft fabrics and flowing lines felt right against her skin in a way her old wardrobe never had. She practiced her voice in private, working to find a natural feminine tone that wouldn't strain her vocal cords. Work presented its own challenges. As a graphic designer who mostly worked remotely, Lila had the luxury of controlling her coming-out process professionally. She started with her direct supervisor, Morgan, during a video call. I want to let you know about some personal changes that will eventually affect how I present at work, Lila explained, her heart pounding despite weeks of rehearsing this conversation. Morgan adjusted her glasses and nodded. I'm listening. I'm transgender and have begun transitioning. I'll be using the name Lila Morgan going forward, and feminine pronouns. Morgan's expression remained professional. Thank you for sharing that with me, Lila. What kind of support do you need from the company during this transition? The conversation proceeded with surprising smoothness. HR protocols were consulted, email signatures updated, and arrangements made for a company-wide announcement that would precede Lila's first day presenting as herself in the office. Family support continued to grow, with Ellie proving particularly invested. She arrived at Lila's apartment one Saturday morning with a makeup bag and determination. I've been watching tutorials, she announced, pushing past Lila into the living room. I figured you could use some sisterly advice. For the next several hours, they sat at Lila's kitchen counter, surrounded by foundations, concealers, and brushes. Ellie demonstrated techniques for softening facial features, explaining color theory and application methods with the enthusiasm of a professional. The key is blending, she insisted, demonstrating on her own face before guiding Lila's hand. And finding the right shade for your skin tone. Lila studied her reflection in the hand mirror, taking in the subtle transformation. The person looking back still had recognizable features, but softer somehow, more aligned with how she'd always pictured herself. "Your auburn hair is going to be gorgeous once it grows out more," Ellie commented, running her fingers through the increasingly lengthy strands. "Have you thought about styling options for the awkward growth phase?" "Bobby pins and patience," Lila replied with a laugh. "Though I did order some headbands." As August drew to a close, Lila received a text message from her mother. "Labor Day barbecue at our house. The whole family will be there. We hope you'll come as yourself." Staring at the phone screen, Lila felt equal parts terror and excitement. This would be her first family gathering, presenting fully as herself. No more half measures or testing the waters. The teal shirt dress she'd ordered months ago but never worn hung in her closet, tags still attached, waiting for the right moment. Labor Day, it seemed, would be that moment. The morning of the barbecue dawned clear and warm, a perfect late summer day. Lila stood before her bathroom mirror, carefully applying the makeup techniques Ellie had taught her. Foundation to even her skin tone, subtle contouring to soften her jawline, mascara to accentuate her eyes, and a rose-tinted lip gloss that complemented her complexion. Her auburn hair, now reaching just past her ears, had been carefully styled with the help of small clips and a bit of product to give it a more feminine shape. In the 2 months since her coming out, it had grown enough to frame her face softly, though not yet long enough for the style she ultimately wanted. The teal shirt dress waited on her bed, alongside white sandals and a delicate silver necklace Ellie had given her as a welcome to sisterhood gift. Lila slipped the dress over her head, adjusting it carefully over the silicone breast forms she'd purchased to create a more feminine silhouette. The material flowed elegantly to just below her knees, cinching slightly at the waist to create a flattering shape. Studying her complete appearance in the full-length mirror, Lila felt a profound sense of rightness. This wasn't a costume or a disguise. It was simply her, finally visible to the world. The drive to her parents' house took 30 minutes, each passing mile ramping up her anxiety. She'd practiced walking in the sandals, had rehearsed conversations in her head, had prepared herself for reactions both positive and negative. Still, pulling into the familiar driveway, she had to sit for several minutes, gathering courage before emerging from the car. Her mother opened the front door before Lila even reached it. "Oh," she breathed, hand rising to her mouth. "You look beautiful, honey." Lila stepped forward into her mother's embrace, inhaling the familiar scent of her perfume mixed with the smoky aroma of the barbecue already underway in the backyard. "Is everyone here?" Lila asked, pulling back to meet her mother's gaze. "Just about. Uncle Frank decided not to come," her mother replied, a flicker of disappointment crossing her features. "His choice, his loss." Taking a deep breath, Lila followed her mother through the house toward the back patio. Conversations quieted momentarily as she stepped outside, all eyes turning toward her. Then Mia broke the silence, running across the lawn. "Aunt Lila, you look so pretty! You're wearing lip gloss like Mommy!" Laughter rippled through the gathering, breaking the tension. Family members approached one by one, some with warm hugs, others with slightly awkward but well-meaning compliments on her appearance. Her father, manning the grill as always, gave her a nod from across the yard. Later, as she helped arrange condiments on the outdoor table, he approached with a spatula still in hand. "That color suits you," he said gruffly, gesturing toward her dress. "Your mother always said teal would bring out your eyes." The comment, so ordinary and yet so affirming, brought tears to Lila's eyes. "Thanks, Dad." The afternoon progressed with surprising normalcy. Cousins discussed work frustrations. Her brother-in-law debated baseball statistics with her father, and Mia proudly showed off her latest art project from summer camp. Occasionally, someone would slip up with a pronoun or her old name, quickly correcting themselves with an apologetic glance. During a quiet moment, Lila's grandmother settled beside her on the porch swing. "You know," the elderly woman said, adjusting her glasses, "when I was a girl, we didn't have words for these things, but we had people like you." She patted Lila's hand. "There was someone in my hometown, born Thomas, but lived as Teresa from age 20 until she died at 82. Ran the best beauty salon in 3 counties. Lila smiled. "What was the secret to her success?" "She understood both sides, I suppose, but mostly she was herself, unapologetically." Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "The world wasn't kind to her, but she found her way. You will too." As evening approached and the gathering began to disperse, Ellie pulled Lila aside. "How are you feeling?" "Exhausted," Lila admitted. "But good, really good. You should be proud. This was a big step." Ellie adjusted the collar of Lila's dress. "By Thanksgiving, no one will even remember you were ever anyone else." Autumn swept into the city with crimson leaves and cool breezes. Lila settled into her new reality, legally changing her name, updating identification documents, and navigating the bureaucratic maze that accompanied her transition. The hormone therapy began showing subtle effects, softer skin, changes in muscle tone, and emotional shifts that sometimes caught her by surprise. Work had proven supportive overall. Her first day in the office presenting as Lila had been preceded by a thoughtful email from HR explaining the situation and requesting respect from all employees. Most colleagues adapted quickly, though occasional mix-ups occurred in moments of distraction. "The key," her friend Zoe from the marketing department advised over lunch, "is not reacting to every mistake like it's a personal attack. People are trying, the ones who matter, anyway." Zoe had become an unexpected ally, inviting Lila to women's happy hours and offering practical advice on professional attire. "Boot season is coming," she announced in early October, dragging Lila to a department store after work. "Every woman needs at least one good pair of boots." 2 hours later, Lila left with brown leather ankle boots and a growing confidence in navigating women's clothing departments. Her auburn hair continued growing, now reaching her shoulders and developing soft waves she'd never noticed when keeping it short. The morning routine of styling had become meditative. Brushing, applying product, arranging it to frame her face. She'd begun experimenting with different partings and clips, discovering how dramatically they could change her appearance. Family dynamics continued evolving. Uncle Frank, who had avoided the Labor Day gathering, unexpectedly reached out in late September.
"I'd like to meet for coffee,"
his text message read.
"if you're willing."
They met at a quiet cafe downtown, Frank arriving first and selecting a corner table away from other patrons. He stood awkwardly as Lila approached, clearly uncertain about proper greeting protocol. Lila extended her hand. "Hello, Uncle Frank." He shook it firmly, then gestured toward the chair across from him.
"Thank you for coming."
For several minutes, they engaged in stilted conversation about the weather and family news. Frank stirred his coffee excessively, avoiding direct eye contact.
"Your Aunt Martha has been on my case," he finally admitted. "Says I'm being a stubborn old fool."
"Aunt Martha always did have good judgment," Lila replied with a small smile. Frank snorted.
"Don't tell her I agreed with that."
He looked up, properly meeting Lila's gaze for the first time.
I don't understand this. I won't pretend that I do. I'm not asking you to understand it, just to respect it. You look different, he observed, studying her face. Not just the clothes and makeup. Something else. I'm happier, Lila replied simply. Less anxious, less depressed. Frank nodded slowly. Your mother says the same thing. Says she hasn't seen you this comfortable in your own skin since you were a small child. Before. He trailed off, gesturing vaguely. Before puberty changed everything. Lila finished for him. Before I started hiding. The conversation gradually warmed, moving from her transition to other topics. Frank's retirement plans, Lila's work projects, a shared interest in woodworking that had connected them when Lila was younger. As they prepared to leave, Frank cleared his throat. Thanksgiving's at our place this year. Martha's already planning the menu. I'll be there, Lila promised. Good. Martha would have my hide if I messed this up. He paused at the door. I might still slip up with your name sometimes. I know. It's okay as long as you're trying. He nodded once more, then walked to his car, leaving Lila with a sense of cautious optimism. By November, Lila's transition had become less the central focus of her life, and more simply the background against which everything else unfolded. Her hormone therapy continued, with subtle physical changes accumulating gradually. Her auburn hair now reached past her shoulders, thick and healthy, and she'd begun experimenting with various styles suited to its natural wave. The teal dress from Labor Day had been joined by an expanding wardrobe of women's clothing that reflected her developing style, professional but feminine, with an emphasis on classic silhouettes and quality fabrics. Shopping, once an anxiety-inducing necessity, had become an occasional pleasure, especially with Ellie or Zoe for company and advice. Thanksgiving at Uncle Frank and Aunt Martha's large colonial house loomed on the horizon. While Labor Day had been a milestone in Lila's transition journey, this gathering would include extended family members who hadn't yet seen her since her transition began. Are you nervous? Dr. Winters asked during their bi-weekly session. Lila considered the question carefully. Less than I expected to be. The biggest hurdles are behind me now. Which ones were those, in your view? Coming out initially, the first time presenting as myself publicly, handling workplace transition. Lila smiled slightly. Explaining to Mia why I don't have to wear dresses every single day. Dr. Winters chuckled. Children often have the most rigid understanding of gender presentation. She was disappointed when I wore pants to her soccer game. Apparently, aunts are supposed to wear dresses to cheer properly. As Thanksgiving approached, Aunt Martha called with surprising frequency, asking questions about food preferences and making a point to use Lila's correct name and pronouns in every conversation. Frank's sister Catherine is coming from Arizona, she mentioned during one call. I've told her about your transition, but you know how Catherine can be. Catherine, Frank's much younger sister with staunchly conservative views, had always been a polarizing presence at family gatherings. I appreciate the heads up, Lila replied. But I can handle Catherine. Of course you can, dear. I just wanted you to be prepared. Martha paused. Wear that lovely teal dress if you still can in this weather. Catherine always responds well to people who make an effort with their appearance. The day before Thanksgiving, Lila drove to Ellie's house for their traditional pre-holiday sister session. With Mia at a friend's house and Ryan watching football, the two women settled in Ellie's bathroom with wine glasses and hair tools. I'm thinking soft waves would look lovely with your dress, Ellie suggested, running her fingers through Lila's auburn locks. Your hair has gotten so thick and healthy. Lila sipped her wine. One of the few upsides of hormones,
The emotional roller coaster, however, I could do without. Welcome to womanhood, Ellie laughed, sectioning Lila's hair and wrapping the first portion around a curling iron. Though to be fair, you're going through what's essentially a second puberty. For the next hour, they chatted about family dynamics, Ellie's work stress, and Lila's recent tentative entry into the dating world. It's complicated, Lila admitted. Some men specifically seek out trans women for all the wrong reasons. Others disappear the moment they find out. I've had a few nice coffee dates, but nothing substantial yet. Dating is terrible for everyone, Ellie assured her, releasing a perfect auburn wave from the curling iron. But especially in transitional periods of life, you'll find someone when the time is right. When Mia returned home, she immediately approved of her aunt's hairstyle. You look like a princess in a movie, she declared authoritatively. The one with the brave heart. Thanksgiving Day arrived cold but sunny. Lila dressed carefully in her teal shirt dress, now paired with warm tights, and her brown ankle boots. A light cashmere cardigan in cream provided additional warmth while complementing the outfit. Her auburn waves framed her face elegantly, and she applied makeup with a practiced hand, enough to enhance her femininity, but subtle enough to look natural for a family gathering. The drive to Frank and Martha's house took nearly an hour, giving Lila ample time to rehearse potential responses to difficult questions or comments. By the time she pulled into the crowded driveway, she felt centered and prepared. Martha greeted her at the door with a warm embrace. You look wonderful, dear. Everyone's in the living room having appetizers. The living room fell momentarily quiet as Lila entered, then erupted in a chorus of greetings. Family members she hadn't seen since before her transition approached, with varying degrees of comfort. Some with easy hugs and compliments, others with awkward but well-meaning comments. Catherine, a petite woman with expertly highlighted blonde hair, remained seated on the sofa, observing from a distance. When the initial flurry of greetings subsided, she finally approached. Well, she said, looking Lila up and down critically. Martha wasn't exaggerating. You've certainly committed to this. Frank appeared suddenly at Catherine's side.
Lila brought the cranberry relish you like,
he said, steering his sister toward the kitchen. Over his shoulder, he gave Lila an apologetic glance. The afternoon progressed with the comfortable chaos of family gatherings. Too many cooks in the kitchen, football on the television, children running between rooms, and the gradually building aroma of turkey and stuffing. Lila found herself naturally included in the women's kitchen conversations, discussing recipes and local school politics. During dinner, seated between her mother and Ellie, Lila participated in the traditional round table sharing of gratitudes. I'm grateful for authenticity, she said when her turn came, and for family who makes space for it. Across the table, Uncle Frank raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement. Later, as guests dispersed throughout the house in post-meal relaxation, Catherine cornered Lila in the hallway. I have questions, she announced without preamble. Frank says I'm not allowed to ask them, but I think that's ridiculous. Lila took a deep breath. I'm open to honest questions, Catherine. What followed was an uncomfortable but surprisingly genuine conversation. Catherine's questions revealed more ignorance than malice, and Lila answered each one with patience, correcting misconceptions without defensiveness. I still don't entirely understand it, Catherine admitted finally. But you seem happier than I've ever seen you. That counts for something. As Lila prepared to leave that evening, Frank approached with her coat.
Catherine's flying home tomorrow,
he said quietly.
She mentioned you had a good talk.
We did, Lila confirmed, slipping her arms into her coat sleeves.
She's trying, in her way.
Frank nodded.
I told her that's all any of us can do.
He hesitated, then added gruffly,
You handled today with grace. Your parents should be proud.
Thank you, Uncle Frank. Driving home through the darkness, Lila reflected on the day. Not perfect, but real. The anxiety that had once accompanied family gatherings had largely dissolved, replaced by a comfortable authenticity that made even difficult interactions manageable. Winter settled over the city with early sunsets and holiday decorations. Lila's transition continued progressing steadily, each day bringing her closer to alignment between her inner self and outer presentation. Her auburn hair now reached the middle of her back, usually styled in loose waves that highlighted its natural texture. The holiday season brought new milestones: a company Christmas party where she wore a simple black dress and received genuine compliments from colleagues, shopping for gifts as herself without anxiety, and planning her contributions to the family Christmas gathering without the emotional weight she'd carried in previous years. One snowy evening in mid-December, Lila met her parents for dinner at their favorite Italian restaurant. Her mother had called the previous day, suggesting the outing with an unusual insistence that both puzzled and intrigued Lila. The restaurant was decorated with twinkling lights and evergreen garlands, creating a warm atmosphere that contrasted pleasantly with the cold outside. Her parents were already seated when she arrived, her mother waving enthusiastically as Lila navigated between tables. "You look lovely, honey," her mother said, rising to embrace her. "That sweater brings out the color in your hair." Lila smiled, settling into her chair. "Thanks, Mom. What's the occasion? You were very mysterious on the phone." Her parents exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them.
"We have something for you,"
her father said, reaching into his jacket pocket.
"We've been thinking about this for a while."
He placed a small box on the table and slid it toward Lila. She opened it carefully, revealing a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant, a butterfly with wings of inlaid mother-of-pearl. "It's beautiful," she breathed, lifting it from the box. "It was your grandmother's," her mother explained. "She gave it to me when I turned 30. It's traditionally passed from mother to daughter." Lila looked up, suddenly understanding the significance. "Mom, it belongs with you now," her mother said simply. "Would you like me to help you put it on?" Nodding wordlessly, Lila turned in her chair, lifting her auburn hair as her mother fastened the clasp around her neck. The pendant settled perfectly at the hollow of her throat, catching the light with subtle iridescence. Her father cleared his throat.
We've been doing a lot of thinking since July, a lot of reading, talking to other parents through that support group your mother found.
"What your father is trying to say," her mother interjected gently, "is that we've moved beyond just accepting this change. We're embracing it. You're our daughter, Lila, in every way that matters." Tears welled in Lila's eyes. "I don't know what to say." Her father reached across the table, taking her hand in his.
"You don't need to say anything. Just know that we're here. Completely."
Throughout dinner, they talked about holiday plans, work projects, and her mother's newest hobby of pottery making. The conversation flowed naturally, without the careful navigation of topics that had characterized their early discussions after her coming out. As they finished their dessert, her mother mentioned casually, "Oh, I've been meaning to ask. We're thinking of redecorating your old bedroom. Since you'll be visiting as Lila now, we thought perhaps the space should reflect that." "What did you have in mind?" Lila asked, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. Nothing dramatic. Fresh paint, new bedding, maybe replace that old desk with a vanity table. Her mother smiled. I thought we might shop for some pieces together after Christmas. The evening ended with warm embraces in the restaurant parking lot, snowflakes drifting around them as they said their goodbyes. Driving home, Lila occasionally touched the butterfly pendant at her throat, a tangible symbol of acceptance and continuity. Christmas Eve brought the extended family together at her parents' home. Lila arrived early to help with preparations, dressed in a deep green sweater dress that complemented her auburn hair, now styled in elegant waves. The butterfly pendant had become a daily accessory, rarely leaving her neck. Throughout the evening, she moved comfortably among relatives, no longer the focal point of curious attention, but simply another family member participating in traditions. Children delivered handmade cards addressed to Aunt Lila, elderly relatives commented on her resemblance to her mother, and conversations flowed without the undercurrent of awkwardness that had characterized earlier gatherings. Late in the evening, as the party wound down, Lila found herself in the kitchen with her sister, washing dishes and chatting about Mia's school play. "Remember last Christmas?" Ellie asked suddenly, handing Lila a dripping plate to dry. Lila nodded, remembering the anxiety that had accompanied that gathering. The discomfort in formal menswear, the constant vigilance against revealing any hint of her truth, the profound disconnect between her inner self and outer presentation. "I was miserable," she admitted, counting the minutes until I could leave. "And now?" Lila considered the question, wiping the plate carefully before placing it in the cabinet. "Now I'm just here, present, part of things without the barrier." Ellie bumped her hip against Lila's affectionately. "That's what I see too. Just my sister, finally comfortable in her own skin." She paused, then added with typical big sister bluntness, "Though you still need work on your eyeliner technique." Lila laughed, flicking dish soap bubbles at her sister. "Not all of us had 20 years of practice." "Fair point. You're making remarkable progress for someone who thought blue eyeshadow with green eyes was acceptable in July." Their banter was interrupted by Mia, who burst into the kitchen with a serious expression. "Aunt Lila, Grandma says you're sleeping in your old room tonight, but it doesn't have any of your stuff anymore." "That's okay, sweetie. I brought everything I need in my overnight bag." "But I made you something to keep in your room forever and ever." Mia produced a small, somewhat lopsided clay figure from behind her back. "It's a butterfly, like your necklace, for your dresser." Lila accepted the homemade gift, touched by the child's thoughtfulness. "It's perfect, Mia. I'll keep it on my dresser every time I visit." Later that night, after changing into comfortable pajamas, Lila sat at the edge of her childhood bed, now adorned with new feminine bedding in soft blues. The room felt both familiar and new, the same dimensions and windows, but with subtle changes that acknowledged her identity. The clay butterfly sat on the refinished dresser beside a framed family photo from Thanksgiving. Looking around, Lila felt a profound sense of completion. The journey that had begun with a therapist's office and clear lip gloss had led her here, to authentic selfhood surrounded by understanding and love. There would always be challenges ahead, but the foundation had been laid for a life aligned with her truth. Outside, snow continued falling, covering the world in clean white possibility as Lila Morgan, finally and fully herself, drifted into peaceful sleep. Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!